Hey everybody, welcome to the video. So we're going my core plays for week 3 of the NFL season over on Draftkings. This video should be short, sweet, to the point, just going over some of my favorite plays on the entire slate. But before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, you might as well hit that subscribe button. Remember, all season long trying to help you guys become better NFL DFS players, and I cover other sports as well. So if you're going to keep coming back to the channel each and every single day, or each and every single week, you might as well hit the subscribe button and turn the notification bell so you don't miss out whenever I post new videos. And if you don't follow me on social media, my handle's in the bottom left hand corner of your screen. And if you want some more content over on Patreon, it's always much appreciated. You get access into all my entire NFL DFS data sheets, which have pretty much every single statistic you need heading into the NFL weekend. And then also my Discord chat as well, where you can ask me questions or just come in and hang out. It's always a good time in Discord. So if you're interested, links down below. But if not, that's fine. Let's just get into this week's core plays. So core play number 1 for me is no other than Miles Sanders, the 6,400, going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm pretty sure every single person alive is talking about Miles Sanders this week. I would expect him to be the highest owned running back or just highest owned player on the entire slate. It's just a great spot here versus Cincinnati. In his week 2 usage, he had 20 rushing attempts and 7 targets. That's nearly 30 opportunities. He's also involved in the passing game, like I just mentioned, which is great for a PPR site like Draftkings. And Cincinnati versus the ground so far this year, they're giving up nearly 40 Draftkings points per game to running backs, 179 rushing yards per game, and a rushing touchdown two rushing touchdowns per game as well. So this is a great spot for Miles Sanders. They're home favorites here. The Eagles have one of the higher implied team totals on the slate. And I definitely like this spot versus Cincinnati. So at only 6,400, love Miles Sanders. If he's going to get us around 20, 30 touches here versus Cincinnati Bengals defense, he should be able to crush that value at 6,400. And he's going to be very chalky, so I understand if you want to pivot in tournaments. But in cash games, or just even in single GPPs, Miles Sanders is going to be an excellent play, and he grades out very well for me this weekend. And then heading into core play number 2 is DeAndre Hopkins at 7,900. He is a bit expensive, but I'm pretty much all in this Arizona Cardinals offense on week 3, which it's always a little bit risky being all in on an offense for the most part, but I really like the trio of Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, and Kenyan Drake. I did not put Kyler Murray as a core play because I just don't typically want to make a quarterback a core play because you're kind of splitting hairs up top between Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, and even Cam Newton. Kyler Murray is my favorite option there, but I just don't want to make quarterback a core play. But he's certainly my favorite quarterback, and then his best option here, DeAndre Hopkins, is one of the best plays in the entire slate for me. He's got a 35% target share this season, a 73% weighted opportunity share, not really getting the ball down the field too much. I believe he's got an 8 out of 5.8 currently, which is not great, but the receptions are going to be there, the targets are going to be there, and the Cardinals have a 30.5 implied team total, which is only half a point off the Seattle Seahawks for being the highest implied team total in the slate. This game is a 55.5 over/under, and the Cardinals play at one of the fastest paces of play at about any team so far this season, and they also played fast last year. So a lot of points are going to be scored. This offense is pretty concentrated. You know the points are going to be coming from Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, and Kenyan Drake for the most part. Also, Christian Kirk is going to miss this game, so it's even more of a boost for DeAndre Hopkins. Not like he even needed it. So definitely Hopkins here. And if he gets guarded by Jeff Okudah for the majority of the game, that only makes me a little bit happier because Okudah really struggled in his first NFL start. Like, I don't think he's going to be this bad going forward. But the guy had an abysmal start to his career. He allowed 0.58 fantasy points per route covered and 3.67 yards per route covered, which is some of the worst marks you'll see in the league. Also, PFF gave him like a grade of around 24, 25, or somewhere in that mid-20s range, which is just absolutely horrendous. So DeAndre Hopkins should be able to eat in this matchup, but Detroit is just not a very good defensive squad versus the run or versus the pass. So love the Cardinals, and obviously going to love DeAndre Hopkins, so I'm going to try to jam in, even though he is a bit expensive on this slate. And he's an excellent pairing with Kyler Murray as well. Now moving on to core play number 3 for me is Jonathan Taylor at $7,000. His price has risen about $1,300. But I still feel like it might be a bit too cheap here, and this matchup is excellent for him. They're 11.5 point favorites at home, which sets up excellently for the run game. He's got a great offensive line. If you're looking at the PFF run blocking advantage matchup here for the Indianapolis Colts, it's at like 72%, which is by far the best on the entire slate. And the Jets have struggled on the ground so far. They're third favorite on the ground, which is a little bit surprising, but they're allowing 30 DraftKings points per game to the running back position. and 170 rushing yards per game and a rushing touchdown per game as well. So Jonathan Taylor, he's going to be a guy that gets 20 plus touches, probably close to 30. He had well over 25 rushing attempts last week. He had 2 targets as well. Week 1, he had 6 targets. But they kind of had the game in check last week, so it really wasn't needed in and out of the backfield. And then they also gave some carries to Jordan Wilkins at the end of the game to spell him, just because, they had the game in hand, which I could see happening again. But Jonathan Taylor, I think we could easily get 100 plus yards on the ground and find the end zone once or twice, and he'll catch a couple of balls as well. So very high floor here, and there's also a lot of upside for Jonathan Taylor as well. So a bit pricey at $7,000, but I still think this price is only going to go up as the season progresses. I think we'll end up seeing him closer to $8,000 by probably the halfway point of the year, or even as soon as next week, depending on how this game goes. So love Jonathan Taylor, very high floor, even a high ceiling guy. So you can sign me up for Taylor, even though the price has risen up. And moving on to core play number 4 here, we have another Arizona Cardinal in Kenyan Drake at $6,000. Now, I know a lot of you probably don't want to play the same quarterback, running back, and wide receiver from the same team. But when a team's got a team total of 30.5, they play at a fast pace, and the offense is pretty concentrated for the most part, I'm going to make an exception for that. I don't even hate the triple stack and cash games, because I think it's all a positive correlation here. But this is a dream spot for Kenyan Drake, and he's a guy that's going to see 20 plus touches each and every single game. He's averaging 18 rushing attempts per game and 2 targets per game, but he's in a pretty good spot here. Detroit so far is 32nd DVA versus the run, allowing nearly 40 DraftKings points per game to running backs, 176 rushing yards per game, also getting beat up in the receiving game as well. And Kenyan Drake is a capable pass catcher. He really hasn't done much damage in the passing game yet, but still a capable pass catcher. We know he's capable of these boom games. And Aaron Jones just last week absolutely destroyed this Detroit defense. I'm not saying Kenyan Drake's going to come out and score 45, 50 DraftKings points, whatever Aaron Jones did, but he's in a pretty good spot here, and I'm a big fan of the entire Arizona Cardinals offense on this slate, so I don't mind loading up on them. I mean, they're just in such a good spot. I really want to take advantage of this. And then moving on to core play number 5, we have Logan Thomas, who comes in at $3,700. Now, I was a little bit hesitant on putting a tight end in the core play section because I think there's some other good tight ends on this slate, like Darren Waller. You also have Jonnu Smith, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, Hunter Henry, and even Jordan Reed. But I really, really like this spot for Logan Thomas because the Browns secondary is not very good, but they do have one bright spot, and that is Denzel Ward. He's been pretty good so far this season, and I imagine he's going to be on Terry McLaurin for the majority of this game. And with the Washington football team being 7-point dogs on the road, they're going to be having to throw the ball quite a bit here, I would imagine. And if McLaurin's going to be getting shut down, I don't think he's going to get absolutely shut down, but if he's going to be getting blanketed by Denzel Ward, he's going to throw the ball somewhere. And Logan Thomas is the guy that's been getting quite a bit of volume this season. If we're looking at his targets per game so far, if I can pull up his numbers really quick on my computer, he's getting 8.5 targets per game, only 4 catches per game, but he's got a 26% target share, a 58% weighted opportunity share. He's also getting some air yards as well, a 25% market share of the team's air yards, 134 in the season, and nearly a dot of 8. So I think Logan Thomas is a pretty good play. If they're not going to be able to get the ball to if they're not going to be able to get the ball to Terry McLaurin, and they're trailing and they have to throw the ball quite a bit, I think it's going to be Logan Thomas not up the middle, but down the middle of the field. And look, the Browns have really struggled versus tight ends so far this season. Like, Denzel Ward's doing a fine job outside, but versus the tight end position, they got killed by Mark Andrews in week 1. He scored 2 touchdowns. Then in week 2 versus the Bengals, CJ Uzomah got into the ends, and then when he got hurt, Drew Sample ended up having a pretty good game as well. So I really like this spot for Logan Thomas. I think he's a bit too cheap here. Cleveland's 30th DVA versus the pass so far this season. They're allowing the most DraftKings points per game to tight ends at 21.3 per game so far. 45 receiving yards, but 2 receiving touchdowns per game. So Logan Thomas, he's in a pretty good spot, and I do think Denzel Ward should give Terry McLaurin fits in that game, and Logan Thomas should be the beneficiary of that. So I don't love using tight ends as core plays, but I'm having a hard time not making laughs with Logan Thomas, to be honest. So definitely like the spot for him. And instead of closing this video out with my 5th and final core play, I added a GPP play that I thought was pretty interesting on this slate. So now that might be something new I do each and every single week. In addition to the core plays, I'll add a GPP play that I really like in tournaments. And that tournament play I like quite a bit this week is the Deshaun Jackson at 5,200. I was looking at ownership projections, and he's not popping up as much as I thought he would be. And if that's going to be the case, I definitely don't mind being overweight on Deshaun Jackson because this is a pretty good spot for him. I mean, the Bengals defense just does not look that great. They made the Cleveland Browns offense look pretty good last week. Odell Beckham Jr. beat him deep on quite a few plays. And the thing that makes it really the most interesting is that Jalen Reagor is going to miss this game, and Alshon Jeffrey is as well. So Deshaun Jackson, I think he could get double-digit targets in this game. On the season, he's averaging 7.5 targets per game, only 4 catches for 55 yards, 19% target share, but he's getting the ball down the field. He's got the third most air yards this season. He's at 282 air yards and an ADOT of 17.6, and he's got 36% market share of the team's air yards as well. And keep in mind, like I just said, Jalen Reagor is going to miss this game, so Deshaun Jackson, he's going to be the guy outside, and they're going to take some deep shots here, and this is a beatable secondary going up against the Bengals, so only 5,200. He's a nice pairing with Carson Wentz, and it's actually pretty easy to stack up these Eagles today because you can use Carson Wentz for cheap. Miles Sanders is cheap. He's also involved in the passing game, so that's not a negative correlation. Then you have Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, which are around the 5K range. Then you have Deshaun Jackson, only 5,200, so I think stacking up the Eagles is actually pretty easy to do. And if Deshaun Jackson is going to end up coming in pretty low owned, I love him as a tournament play because I think there's a ton of upside here, and if he can connect on his deep balls with Carson Wentz, he could be in for a pretty big day. So I really like Deshaun Jackson in tournaments. I think you could even play him in cash games. So it might be a bit of a stretch playing someone like Deshaun Jackson in cash games, but the price is nice and the volume should be there, and he's going to get the ball down the field. So I think that makes him a pretty strong play. But that's going to be it for the video, guys. I hope it was helpful. If it was, make sure you leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, like I said, my stuff's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. ChrisPennell16 on Twitter. CPen16 over on IG. And if you want to support more content over on Patreon, get access to my entire NFL DFS data sheet, which has a bunch of stuff on here. Like pretty much everything you're wondering, like numbers-wise, it's probably on my sheet, and everything's color-coded so you know what's good, what's bad. Also have my cheat sheet with notes on there as well. So you can check that link down below. You can hop into the Discord chat as well. But with that, I will let you guys get out of here and hope you guys enjoy Football Sunday. And also, NASCAR Sunday if you're watching NASCAR as well, because I know I will be at 7 p.m. So anyway, enjoy the games, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day just in general and for DFS as well.